heart, and welcome back to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Good morning, my moodies. I hope you're all out there having a great day. So, before we kick off today, I have a correction to make. I made a mistake. A couple podcasts ago, I was speaking about Amazon Global and the growth from 50 million to 11 billion. And I said annual revenue. And we did not do 11 billion in annual revenue. That was a mistake on my part. I don't know why I said it. I didn't say it in any other podcast, but I want to come clean about that and be clear that that was not $11 billion in annual revenue. That was $11 billion in revenue over a 4 to 5 year period. Still amazing fucking growth for worldwide exports. And nothing to be ashamed of, but I do want to be upfront about that it was not 11 billion in annual revenue because that would have been fucking amazing. Uh and we are correcting that podcast. That will be corrected, but I just want to let you guys know in case you heard that. So today, but part of this, how this all sort of came about was that I've been working with Andrew, as I told you guys, and we started talking about Amazon Global. And when we built it, when we both started at Amazon, what was happening at Amazon, how we got the program up and running, and what was going on. And so, as part of that, we really started digging into what was happening then. What were we doing? Why were we able to succeed where other people hadn't? Why were we able to get such a massive amount of scale and growth at that time? And one of the first things I want to say, and I do try to point this out at all times. One, we had an Amazon tailwind. Okay, so could we have done this standing on a street corner with a vendor or with some funding from a VC? Probably not. We had Amazon behind us, and that made scale. And Amazon itself was scaling so fast at that time and growing so fast at the time that we kind of got caught up in it. So I do want to always call out that we had Amazon was our biggest investor and we had a tailwind that enabled us to have access to stuff to scale. And Andrew and I have been talking about the technical and business things that we've been doing and how we built Amazon Global and what made it special and what we did differently. But there's one thing that we haven't spoken about and we probably won't speak about, and it's part of the scale conversation, and I'm remiss without and not including it in the initial scale conversation, to be totally honest with you. And that is this: in order to scale anything, you must work with the most common denominator first. That is the key to scaling. Put in a different way that I sometimes say with my clients is special does not scale. To put this in a different, to put it in a slightly different light. But when Andrew and I sat back and started talking about everything that we built while we were working together at Amazon, and then what I continued to go on to build at Amazon. So we've talked about Amazon Global, and how that business grew from 50 million in the first year to 11 billion in total revenue over the next 4 to 5 years. Here's a couple things that made that happen. One, we would go on to implement Amazon Global on the UK website, on the German website, and on the Japan website. And we would ship from those locations to almost every country we were shipping to from the United States. There were some restrictions related to those countries. So we had to be able to not only ship from the United States to 200 countries, we had to be able to ship from the UK, from Germany, and from Japan, all to 200 or slightly less countries, depending on what the regulations were. By the time I left Amazon Global on .com, we were exporting or eligible to export 80% of the hardlines and softline products on Amazon. So that's all, everything that's not books and BMVD, books, music, video, and DVD. We enabled 80% of hardlines and softlines to be exported. And we had to classify that, we had to vet it, we had to know what country it could ship to, we had to know everything about it. Again, scale. Didn't just do it in the United States, we did it in 3 other countries. After I left Amazon Global, the operations team, I moved over to FBA. I left behind the import department, all my export compliance responsibilities. Actually, I didn't leave any of that shit behind. I'm gonna tell you, it just came with me. I just moved jobs, but most of that stuff followed me around. Eventually I got rid of it, but for a while, I was still kinda running both. But so when I went to go over to FBA to build more global programs, because we had already figured out how to get Amazon.com to export, right? Just built that, running fine, don't need me anymore. How do we help our FBA merchants? How do we help merchants export? That was my next big initiative that I went over to the FBA team to build. Again, massive scale. Rapidly grew that business to $1.9 billion. And that was for exporting, allowing FBA sellers to export to other countries, sell in other countries. That's what that initiative was, is getting Amazon sellers to sell their product on other websites. So the UK website, the German website, the Japan website. Obviously, UK was the first and the easiest to do. But the whole idea around this was to get merchants to sell international. Again, couple years, 1.9 billion. Another initiative was to allow, created a whole logistics and distribution in the EU to allow for EU sales to all the 27 different countries, solve for the VAT issues, et cetera, et cetera. Half a billion. Again, multiple multi-billion dollar startups at Amazon. Scale. Again, I had the power of Amazon, right? I had the best of the best of best at my disposal, had the best engineers, I had all of the best available to me, the best architects, and I had access to all this product. So again, Amazon tailwind and a lot of people around me who helped me. On our tech team, it was just me and Andrew who started, but eventually we had Ven Pramod, who passed away. So on the tech team, we had Andrew, and then we had Ven and Peggy and Raymond, and eventually we had Jeff and probably a few other people that worked on the account or worked on it that maybe I didn't have exposure to or I've forgotten. I'm sorry. On my business side, I had, for Amazon Global, we had Marcella and Somana. And that business continued to grow after I left. Amazon Global continues to grow. Um, but it wasn't just me. There was a team and there was the power of Amazon making all of this happen, enabling us to grow and scale at this pace. But what was it specifically that allowed us to do this? What was it that allowed us to build and move in a compliant environment where almost nothing happens quickly? How were we able to get millions of products available to ship, export from multiple countries, multiple different products with different compliance requirements, different country requirements, everything? Like, it was bonkers back then. We attacked everything. First of all, we attacked everything. Everything was an attack. But we attacked everything with the most common denominator. And what does that mean? When we were building Amazon Global, and Andrew and I were talking about what was the direction we were given. We weren't given a financial direction. I've talked about this. Financial goals are not goals. They're the outcome of a goal. So we were not given financial goals. We were given goals that said, we want to ship everything to everybody everywhere. That was the North Star for Amazon Global. So how do you attack that? How do you walk into a company and go, all right, we're already sending books, music, DVD with some success. We started to uncover that even that needed to be managed through compliance. That's how it all ended up running up under me, because you can't actually ship all books to every country. And some countries do actually charge duty and taxes on books. So it all became part of this big program. And how do you attack that? How do you go after something and say, I have got to ship everything to everybody everywhere? Most common denominator. Here's what that looks like. The first and foremost thing we had to do was figure out which countries we were going to start shipping to first, right? So we got to figure out what are the country requirements. Real easy. EU. We're going to go to Europe first. Easiest thing to do. Not a lot of character issues with any sort of kanji. Back then, that was an issue. But we started chunking off countries that had like requirements, like importing requirements. Now, when we jumped into this, we said, oh, well, the EU, right? They're all the same. No, They are not, even if they're in the EU, they have different importing requirements. They work amongst themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're exactly the same to everybody outside. So the first thing we started doing with countries was most common denominator. We go to Europe, we got a good shot at hitting everybody's requirements pretty quick. Start rolling, and then we just start rolling through countries like that. Go into Latin America, similar requirements across the board. Boop, 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 boop. Most common denominator, the requirements. And so we saved the really, really specialized, really hard countries, really difficult countries like Brazil for last. Because while you're serving everybody else with the most common denominator, you can be figuring out what you got to do for the special guy over here and still be making money and scaling and learning and doing what you're supposed to be doing. Most common denominator on the country spot, on the country piece. The second piece was, what products are we going to send? What products can we ship? Can we export? There's a lot of liability in that. There's a lot of regulations in that. Amazon is just becoming a big target, a big company. We still have tax nexus stuff going on. We're like, we don't want to put warehouses in certain states. So we're still kind of treading lightly at Amazon. But we have to grow, and we have to take risks, but they have to be calculated risks because we know that we are setting the world on fire. So we have to be careful. We cannot just allow every single product in our catalog to be exported. That is not allowed. It is not allowed because we will put customers at risk. It is not allowed because some vendors had regulations against this. And that's one of the things that Amazon bumped into in the early days of trying to get this out there and rolling, is that some vendors did not want you to send their stuff internationally. They had contractual obligations that said you can only sell in the United States. Yeah. And the last part is some products you just couldn't send. You can't ship a knife more than 6 inches into Germany. You can't import it. How do you manage that? How do you look at a catalog of tens of millions of products and go, well, damn, we want to ship all of it, but not these? Most common denominator. We started with products that were easy and lightly regulated. Jewelry. Yeah, I know. Sounds crazy, right? Jewelry. High value product. People want it. People shop for it. People are trying to get the best price for it. It was a new business at Amazon with Chris Barrett. He was excited to expand and grow his jewelry business as fast as he could. And he was 100% on board with us exporting jewelry as one of our first hardline product categories. Do you know why we went with jewelry? The simplest classifications. Not complicated. Nope. Pretty basic and not a lot of regulations. Back then and today, well, Kimberly mines and things like that were coming, and blood diamonds was kind of a topic back then. That's died out a little these days with synthetic diamonds, but blood diamonds were a big deal back then. So certification was a big deal. But other than that, it was pretty easy to ship stones, jewelry around the world, and it was super easy to classify. In fact, I gave myself arthritis on my pinky and my pointer finger on my right hand because I spent so much time scrolling through Excel spreadsheets trying to do the classifications. Yeah. And this is back when Excel only had, like, I don't know, 63,000 lines or something, and when you ran out, you had to do another Excel spreadsheet. Like, that's some crazy stuff back then. But so we were actually manually classifying. So in order to move fast and get as much product available, most common denominator. One of the last products we started shipping internationally was shoes, because shoes is incredibly difficult to export, to do the classification for. You got to know all kinds of stuff about a shoe to classify it. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of classifications for shoes based on men and children, and what it's made out of and what the inside's made of and the bottom's made out of and what it does and how you wear it. And oh my God, it's forever. A diamond ring is a diamond ring, honey. It don't matter how big it is. Don't matter what color it is. We don't care. Easy. Most common denominator. The other thing that we did while we were doing all this, and I'm reminded when I was talking to Andrew, and also going back through my notes on what was going on back then, because let's be honest, it's been 20 years and a lot has happened. But the other thing that we did that was a big scale project is we built our own classification engine. Yeah, you heard it. Yep. Jeff. Jeff built machine learning classification. You know how we designed it? Off of the HTS structure and the product catalog. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. Crazy, right? When you run an e-commerce website, this was a big aha moment, and we got a patent for this, by the way. It was a big aha moment when we were figuring out we have to automate classification. How do we automate classification? How do we automate classification? We were sending classifications out to someone else to do classifications for us. That was very expensive. We did not want to continue to do that. And we also didn't need necessarily 100% accurate classifications because we were using this for export and it was B2B and there was a little bit of wiggle room because we were going to refund the customer if we overcharged them and we were going to eat it if we didn't do it right. So we felt comfortable with about 85% accuracy. We want to get to 100%, but we felt like we could go live with 85%. So Somana and I and Jeff and team built a classification engine. Early AI, machine learning, self-teaching classification engine. Yeah, seeded it and everything. And we able to get to 85% accuracy on classification. Again, most common denominator. We started with everything that had full product data in the catalog. Because here's the thing. If you take a search hierarchy or a product attribute, catalog attribute hierarchy, and you lay that against an HTS hierarchy, they're almost the same, right? We start with women, shoes. Yep, yep, yep. It gets down. Catalog does the same thing, right? What's a shoe made of? What's this? What's this? Made of leather. It's got a high heel. It's an athletic shoe. It's got a rubber bottom. All that information is available. And when Endless came around, all of that information was available for shoes. So what we did is we built an engine that pulled that information from catalog, bumped it up against bumped it up against the HTS database, and came up with classifications. And we vetted and we taught, and Somana worked on this for years and making that system better and better and better and better. But again, most common denominator. How do we solve this classification issue? What do we have available to us? What is the most common denominator? Product data, catalog data. We don't need to go get it from the vendors or create some new database or scrub something. We got it all right there on our website. It's all right there. So we built a classification engine, machine learning engine is what we were calling it then, early AI. We built that. And then another thing we built to scale on top of that was we built the hazmat engine. And the hazmat engine was based on the classification engine. The same exact philosophy. We already have all the product data. We already have it. We already have a clean description of everything that's going on in hazmat, or a clean description of what this product actually is. And again, if you looked at the hazmat regs, not as clean of a plug with the HTSs because of the way that they're broken down. But again, you could match the attributes from the product catalog with an hazmat description and get pretty close on your hazmat classification. Now, we had humans who reviewed these because that's very dangerous and we need to be careful with that. But we were able to use most common denominators to eliminate 50, 60, 70% of the work. That's how we were able to run billion-dollar businesses with 1 or 2 people, 3 or 4 people. My entire team at Amazon, when I was running Amazon Global, Amazon Imports and Exports, hazmat, and product compliance, and I had all of that for a while there. It was exhausting. It was a lot of work. When I had all of those things, I had 15 employees. Because we worked on the most common denominator. We worked on keeping everything light, functional, and moving forward. And we solved the big problem first. Most companies go out and they specialize on something, they focus on something that we're gonna solve this edge case over here, and we're gonna spend all our time solving this edge case. And for Amazon, that would have been like us saying we're gonna ship shoes first, and we're not gonna start anything else until we start exporting shoes, and we would have never done it because it would have taken us forever to figure it out. Most companies do that. They start with the edge case and work backwards. Start with the most common denominator. What of all of the things that you have, the problems that you're going to solve or trying to solve, have the most common thing? Cause, solution, data. What is in common? How are they related? Start there. That is how you scale. Because once you solve for the big things, I need to be able to export jewelry. I need everything. I want to export everything. Once you solve for the big things, you can come back and solve for the little things. But if you do it the opposite, you will always get stuck with the little things. Most common denominator is the key. One of the keys. Because flexibility is the other one. And storytelling. To growing scalable, big, huge businesses. Most common denominator. It's not sexy. It's not going to get me any awards, but it's working. By the way, Andrew and I are still recording. We're working on it. And I told you I've been doing a little research. Amazon Global still does live on today. I had thought that maybe it had been deprecated, but it is now called Global Store. And you can still find it on Amazon. And we still do allow to ship from the UK, Germany, and Japan. So we'll talk about when I get back with Andrew about what happened with Amazon Global, how the market has continued to evolve, and kind of the need for Amazon Global has died just a little bit, which is sort of sad, but she's still out there. So thank you for being here. Look for the most common denominator. That's the way to solve your problems, guys. All right, we'll chat soon.